Hello boys and girls, it's me, Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and today we bring you a brand new episode of a little show that some of you watch, some of you don't. If you're watching for the first time, welcome. Magic the Colouring, where we talk about pop culture icons and other weird shit like Mr. Blobby, and we ask, where in the colour pie would it fit, and why do we care? With me today I have Chris.
Hello.
He once told a story on my stream about shitting himself, didn't you, Chris?
I did, yeah. I get people approach me in person now, quoting it, which is not.
Are you the pants shitting man?
Yeah, or just generally they'll just come up to me and just be like, "Oh, warmth," and then giggle, and I love it.
And then you shit on them as revenge.
Well, you got to spread the joy. And
Jonathan. Hello, John, the Baptist.
Hello. What's up?
Baptised any good children lately?
That's not really a question you ask people. I'm not in casual conversation
Innocent
anyway.
baptisms, John. Innocent baptisms.
Is there such a thing?
Whoa!
Whoa.
Political statement about the church. Whoa! And Rob.
Starting early.
White Robert himself, my co-stream host on Monday nights.
Hello.
Why does everyone always pause for like a few seconds for this hello? Just fucking get on into
It's sort of I think it's now become just sort of a running gag.
Everyone is bad at introductions. Oh, but the introductions out of the way, today we're going to speak about Spider-Man. Now, it's kind of topical. The game came out a few months ago and it was fucking banging. Homecoming maybe 6 months before that. We've just had Into the Spider-Verse that I actually haven't seen. So there won't be any Into the Spider-Verse spoilers today. But we're asking the question, if Spider-Man existed in the Magic Multiverse, what colours would he be? I guess we can start with Chris, because you're like Spider-Man expert, aren't you, Chris?
Yeah, no, I love that little red guy that runs around collecting the coins with Sonic. He's great. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Right, thanks for that, Chris. Moving on.
Right, so we're not actually going to Chris first, because Chris has no fucking idea. I did ask them to prep for this, and then about half an hour before we started, they're like, yeah, no one's done any prep. I was like, okay, cool. Just me then. That's a lie, I've done no prep as well. We're prepared for this shit.
Just going to wing it. It's
To be
fine.
fair, like it's less the lack of prep. It's more I don't really know much about Spider-Man.
Okay, so what do you know about Spider-Man? Okay, here you go, Chris. An alien has come down from space, okay? Mm-hmm. And he said to you pants-shitting man, tell me about Spider-Man. And you go, oh, fuck, I better tell him about Spider-Man. What would you tell him? What do you know? What are the basics?
Well, first of all, I would apologise for the inconvenience that I know very little about this chap. But if they were quite persuasive or demanding, I would state that he appears to be a adolescent, kind of sprightly being that apparently got bitten by some sort of radioactive spider or some shit and gained the ability to ejaculate through his wrists. Right,
okay. Did you know, Chris, that's actually only the fabrication of the movies, the Sam Raimi movies. In the actual comic book universe, he doesn't ejaculate through his wrist. Did you know that?
Really?
This is all a learning experience for Chris. Okay, let's go to John and Rob. Someone else hit the floor, because Chris has no fucking idea what we're talking about at the moment, at least. I'm sure he'll come in a moment.
Comics in general. Don't have a clue. Sorry.
Hello. I am the second worst, least qualified person to speak about comics. Yes, Spider-Man.
What colours is it, John?
I think he's bant.
You think everything's banned?
I do.
Is he a hero? Must be white. That's racist, John.
No, I think he's banned for a few reasons.
Go on.
Okay, so he's green because he doesn't fly, but he definitely has reach, because that's a predominantly spidery thing to do.
Sure.
Green,
and he fights like aerial bad guys, the Green Goblin, the Vulture. Like lots of his villains happen to fly, and he fucks them up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He is. I think that there's a blue aspect to round it out to like a Simic side of things. You know, radioactivity, mutations, and intellect, and kind of like, you know, a sciencey aspect to things, I guess, because he's, you know, canonically quite a clever young chap.
He's known to dabble in the sciences.
He dabbles in with a bit of chemistry here and there. I mean, he makes his the spider goop, the the goopy good stuff that
Ejaculate.
comes. The spider spunk
So
that comes out
Chris,
of
to
his
fill
wrists.
you in with some Spider Cannon, and for anyone at home who's not a Spider-Man fan, the actual web shooters that he uses to fire the web from and swing from were actually like mechanical contraptions he'd built, and the fluid was a chemical that he designed himself as a high schooler, because he's kind of like, as most superheroes seem to be, have some sort of genius level intellect, which isn't part of the superpower kit, but it just happens to help them have gizmos and other such nonsense. So yeah, science is definitely part of his kit. But why is he white, John?
Okay, so the white is, it's going to be the crutch in that it is a heroic leaning colour.
I'm
not saying that.
I'm gonna fucking ban this eventually from this fucking show.
No. There's more reasons than that. There's the sense of
more
justice.
Justice. That's just heroism again, John.
So obviously there are white creatures in Magic that are not good. There are white villains in the game.
See, no
But
lemons.
yeah, exactly,
Yes.
and obviously, who was it? It was Doc Cotton as well.
For those of you that don't know what the fuck we're talking about, there are some previous episodes that'll be in the cards for the show in the description below. Go back and watch about some British TV icons that are obviously villainous, almost like cult leadery.
Exactly.
Yeah, that we describe them as potentially white because they might appear altruistic at first, but in reality they're evil.
Doc Cotton is not a cult leader.
No.
Not that you know of.
Well, it's a cult of personality. I worship at the fucking altar of Doc Cotton. Do you not, Chris?
I tend not to.
It's just a mound of spent cigarette butts.
I thought all British smokers had to like fucking pray to the patron saint of Doc Cotton before they could have a cigarette. Anyway, we're going off onto British shit that no one will have a fucking clue about. So
Okay,
yes,
I'm gonna finish off my quickly hashed together justification, and that.
right, finish me off, John. Go on, finish me off.
Oh, okay. Oh, don't say it like that. Say it slower. No, because white also has the ability to give creatures flying or like jump abilities.
Right.
So obviously, so
any character that can jump is white.
No, but he has you have creatures that are
Bunny rabbits and kangaroos inherently white
that
in
sometimes
the
have the ability to have flying or flying-like things.
Right.
So he can also gain flying in certain circumstances, so that he can get over enemies.
He
and
never
he's not
flies,
just a creature
John.
with a
He
reach.
doesn't fly.
No, but what I mean is, you have people who don't fly but have gained flying in Magic.
Oh, like
where it
Signal
goes
Pest.
if they attack.
Signal Pest, that famous white card.
No, there's a creature that came out in Ravnica, the 2-drop, that has you can pay 1 on a white when it attacks, and you can give it flying.
Yes, which actually is like, isn't it like swinging on ropes? Actually, that card.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, so Spider-Man with his fucking web shooters, that all kind of works, and he gains flying.
Okay.
So shut up and talk to Rob, please.
Well, can I just interject very quickly, because I had a kind of thought. I'm not including white in my thing, and to be fair, I have one film as a point of reference.
Which one is it? Which one is it?
The one with the
It's not-
spider.
It's not the Andrew Garfield one. That's the bit
Helpful.
I'm trying to clarify. It's not the Andrew Garfield like late noughties ones, like 2011s.
Yeah, no, I'm fairly certain it is. Yeah, that is what I'm
no,
referring to.
no.
Well,
Is
no,
it
I was
Tobey
just gonna-
Maguire?
Is it
or
Tobey
is
Maguire?
Andrew Garfield?
I think I've seen about half an hour of a Tobey Maguire one.
Right, that's fine.
Okay.
They're considered to be relatively, if corny, relatively true to spirit. But carry on.
Well, I was going to say my general kind of magic themed thought on Spider-Man is that it would be Simic. And to clarify as well, I have seen Infinity War, so I get the vibe that Spider-Man is also Tony Stark's bitch. But my kind of thought is it would be Simic, but it would be kind of more heavily leaning towards the blue, but without losing its green identity, like an illusion type. Not in terms of actual character, but in terms of ability. Where
What, if he was targeted, he'd disappear.
Yeah, essentially.
Are you referencing the end of Infinity War, where he's like, "I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark."
Oh God, yeah, no, that is a good. Yeah, no, but
I don't think that's inherent to his character. I think he's been vaporized by some sort of cosmic space magic,
He's died many times in the comics.
and he
I was gonna
always
say,
fucking
like,
comes back.
I just get the vibe that he's just a bit, kind of, in terms of life and life expectancy, quite whimsical. Doesn't take a great deal to take him down.
Actually,
he's just a
But he is very
teenager.
effective.
Actually, he can be shot and carry on quite normally. He heals at an alarming rate.
He does.
He's
yeah.
got. So come on, Rob. You're probably the biggest
Yeah,
Spider-Man
come on,
fan
Rob.
amongst us. I hope you've got a differing opinion to John. Otherwise, this is going to be a very dull episode.
I actually agree with Chris. I've always thought that he's Simic but I would say that he is green, green, blue, whereas Doc Ock is blue, blue, green. And I'll elaborate on that in a minute. But mainly, I want to talk about Spider-Man. He's altered. His physiology is altered by a radioactive spider, which is about as accidentally joining the Simic Combine as you can possibly do. I think fucking around with your own physiology. He's a scientist. He
sometimes randomly transforms into a man spider.
Exactly. He's like a treetop scout, so like he can't be blocked except by creatures with flying. But at the same time, he's got reach and
cosmic
can kind
gauntlets.
of do things with flying creatures, as John pointed out. He's I mean, I think that there's no real argument for anything else. I mean,
I've got a slight counter argument in the moment, but carry on.
His heroism is largely grounded in things that he sort of pushed into it through guilt. So I can't wholly say that he's white in a Superman style, pure kind of completely
okay. Let's talk about
completely
that
selfless.
So motivations for heroism, right? Like John is always obsessed with every fucking hero being white. Is that fair to say, John?
No. It's just coincidental.
We'll look back at this in like the 50th episode and we'll see how many times John said a heroic character is white. Which will be every fucking time. Okay, so Rob makes a point about white being about motivation. So Superman is this bastion of hope and standout moral character, mainly because he learnt it from like small town values of his parents and things. And he likes everything to be black and white, Americana.
Exactly.
The communists are bad, America's good, or the American ideal.
Yeah,
is
Superman
good.
was brought up in a Norman Rockwell painting.
Exactly.
All things are good.
So Spider-Man is meant to be from the Marvel staple of heroes, where they have flaws that make them relatable, where DC characters tend to be godlike and untouchable. So that's why he differs so much to Superman. You said that perhaps he is guilt-tripped into being good. I mean, Spider-Man's motivation for becoming Spider-Man after getting his powers is because of his own hubris and because of his own mistakes. His own uncle gets shot by a criminal he didn't stop when he had all the power to do so, and there feels like he should make amends for that. Is that correct?
Exactly, and that was repeated again when he got older with the death of Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
And his whole thing is sort of like getting over his head. Somebody gets close to him, gets hurt, and then they get hurt, and then he recommits to heroism.
Yeah, so the
through
defining
those
characteristic
actions.
is mistakes. Like Spider-Man always makes mistakes, but could that still not be white? Because don't forget, we're talking about a character that he's considered to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's about community. And I think community is very much like a green-white trait. If we're using Ravnica guilds, because Ravnica is very
That's
hot
true. That's a very Selesnya type
Selesnya
thing. He's
about
your friendly
unity.
neighborhood Spider-Man.
Exactly. So I although I mock John for always relying on white as a crutch for every heroic character we discuss in these sort of conversations, I do think he's all about the community. And like part of Spider-Man's identity is that he is from New York and he defends New York because he feels like he has a debt to the people of New York because they've helped him in the past and so on and so forth. So he is so much, his motivations aren't just from the guilt of his uncle's death and other characters' deaths and that sort of thing, but he feels motivated to help the community in which he lives and grew up and owes something to. So that feels very white-green as well.
I get that, and I've felt that the problem is that in order to justify him being able to create his web shooters, they had to make him a super scientist. But in the comics, the only reason why he has web shooters, rather than the organic web shooting that he can do in the Sam Raimi movies, is because it allows for a dramatic twist. So, like, what happens is that he can't use his webs against an enemy because they're not effective, so he has to create a version of his web shooters that will shoot webs that will trap Electro, for example, because they're immune to electricity. Or he'll try to do something, and then all of a sudden his web shooters will run out, and then, oh no, drama. And it's a way, it's a means, a lazy literary means of escalating the drama. If you take that away, and then you don't need him to be a super scientist because he has a suit and all of his abilities are essentially natural, like they are in Sam Raimi movies, then there is no argument to say that he's just green-white, because his sense of community and all of his powers and his sort of ethos is much more situated on that side of the colour pie than in the blue side.
Well, it's like you said about Doc Ock being double blue and shit, but I think... I mean, because you look at a lot of the characters within the Simic, for example. That's the thing. I'm going to say this again and maybe go into it in another episode in the future. But like, he's not Simic because Simic is a particular guild from a particular time and place. But the whole blue-green thing of grafting and changing your anatomy doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a scientist. It just means you could be a byproduct of that, like a mutant, for example.
Yeah, that's true.
So I do think blue fits in it a little bit. But I about that idea that if we fixed and made the perfect version of Spider-Man where we actually had complex characterization that could help us to create drama, as opposed to fake characterization that could create drama, should I say, or fake confrontation, we get two different Spider-Men. But
you might say if we tried to create a superior Spider-Man,
which is a reference to the fact that there's a superior Spider-Man comic book, is that right?
Yes, it is. Which is Doc Ock.
But what if he's Rug?
Why is he red?
Yeah, why red?
Because he is... So, in the comic books and more contemporary comic books, he is always involved in mad science. Right?
Yes.
Like, the reason Doc Ock exists is because, like, he was, like, his assistant, depending on which canon you're looking at, and things went horribly wrong, and Doc Ock got grafted with giant robot arms and went fucking mental. Like, he's always seems to be around when there's some sort of, like, technological fucking marvel that goes horribly, horribly wrong, that I think transcends past the genetic side of what we're talking about with Simic, that makes him feel a little bit, is it? He's also quite... Is he? Oh, no. I was going to argue that, like, his origin story makes him kind of Rug, because he gets, especially in Sam Raimi movies, he gets shitty, ignores the crime, lets it happen. That feels quite red.
He does seem to be. There is this sort of because he gets in over his head. He does seem to sort of like rush in a little bit. He does seem a bit headstrong at times and a bit naive. Now, whether that comes from a redness of impulsiveness, which is a very red trait, possibly.
Yeah, definitely. And like, look at his quipping as well. Like the constant sarcastic, dry wit of Spider-Man.
Well, I mean, I've always felt that is more that's if anything, that's more of a black thing to do, because it's indulging in an ego that he doesn't have the ability to indulge in any other form of situation in life. Like, the whole point of being able to be Superman is that he gets to be
Spider-Man,
the better, the cool one, the awesome one. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because when he is Peter Parker, he's an absolute dork, and then when he's Spider-Man, he gets to like hide behind the mask and.
Exactly, he gets to be what he thinks is a cool person.
I think there's I just think there's minor elements of mad science, but I don't think it makes him red. Like, it's. Yeah. I can't argue it myself. I'm sat there going, there's mad science going on. There's like fucking electrical explosions and shit. And if there's a set with Spider-Man in it, like Doc Ock, you said Doc Ock was blue, green or whatever. I don't think he's green in the slightest. He is blue red. He's putting mechanical fucking arms on himself, like driving mad. He's red blue.
I don't know. He's the best Spider-Man villain, because he's basically the exact sort of the mirror opposite of Spider-Man. He's the closest Marvel have ever gotten to having a Batman-style villain, one that is so perfectly matched to the hero, in the sense of, because all the Batman villains are all reflections of his own psyche. Yeah. Doc Ock is the best Marvel equivalent of that. So
does he not
he's basically the same as. Because he's basically like, he's a nice guy in the early comics. Like, him and Aunt May are like a thing. They like
they play it up real badly in the new game, don't they? They're like, oh, guess what's going to happen? Oh, look, he's eating octopus for lunch, and you're like, oh, maybe that's this guy called Octavius might be Doc Ock. John, were you going to say something about Doc Ock?
I was going to say, does he not kind of fit more in with the canon magic characters with someone like Mishra, who is Grixis? Is that off the table entirely?
Not entirely. I mean, again, it's motivations, right? Like, what's Doc Ock's primary motivation once he's been driven mad by his big cybernetic arms?
I have no idea.
I'm asking Rob, because I don't think I've ever read a comic book where he's actually like a main character. He's always like part of the Sinister Six. Or
in the new game, he hates Osborn, and the arms drive him, basically inhibit basically change his brain chemistry to make him irrational, is basically the argument. And that's the same thing that they...
It's got a rivalry. It's all about rivalry, right? Like,
with Osborn, and in the... In the Sam Raimi movies, he has the inhibitor chip that prevents the AI of the arms to influence his mind. So similar thing, but slightly more insidious. In the comic books, he's a little bit more one-dimensional, where he's just kind of like, aha, I can now do this. Now I have the power to do this, so I should go and rob banks to fund my science. And he's a little bit less interesting, I guess.
I guess he's become more nuanced in recent times, right? Like, it wasn't one of the most recent storylines that he had something akin to cancer, so he had to transfer his consciousness into Spider-Man's body.
Yes, and then he learned. Well, this is the thing. This is why he's so close. Because what happened was that him and Peter Parker swapped minds, but he has access to all of Peter Parker's memories. So in addition to putting himself in the positions of all the kind of awesome sexual occasions where Peter Parker's like hooked up with MJ and stuff, and being able to dine out on that in his mind for a while. But he also realizes all the struggles that Peter has been through and how he can relate them to his own life. And that's why he commits himself to becoming the superior Spider-Man, because he sees what Peter has done and can kind of empathize with it so well, which is why he takes on the mantle and then decides that he wants to basically be a better Spider-Man than Peter Parker ever was. Because it's like, there's that rivalry element, but it's also there is that they are so close as characters. But that's only because, as you say, he's been more nuanced as time goes on. I honestly think that Spider-Man 2's version of Doc Ock is the best one.
Huh. Well, that's what I have to end on. Actually, I mean, Chris is going to have much opinion on this because he's only seen half an hour of one movie. But basically, we've come to a conclusion that has anyone got any contrary points? Does anyone think that Spider-Man is not blue-green with elements of white?
I'm not too sure on the white, but I don't know. The one point I did kind of want to mention is that I can see with my limited knowledge, granted, I can see a fair few similarities between Spider-Man and Nyssa in Magic.
Okay.
How so?
If you replace the elves of Zendikar and the land of Zendikar with the law-abiding citizens of New York.
I mean, she was like a proper racist hater.
Wasn't she like an
outsiders.
eco-terrorist or something like that when she first started?
She hated foreigners.
Yeah, when she started, but in her opinion, she's she thinks that she's a lot more tolerant of people.
But Spider-Man's never been like, "Oh, you're from Queens."
That doesn't work. That's not the side I'm going with.
Okay.
But it's more that kind of that transition when she went to the Steward of Elements in Armageddon.
Mm-hmm.
When she integrated that little bit of blue in, and instead of being about thought and that kind of what is it? Because she did that. She discovered this power of like this inward thought and that whole kind of
meditation.
Control, that sort of bollocks, yeah. But instead of
bollocks,
yeah. But instead of that side of blue, if you lean that blue towards the more sciencey chemistry side, then those two things fusing together seems quite apt if you ignore the racism.
Yeah,
they feel quite similar in that regard.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
I'm kind of getting at. So I
don't see Spider-Man as much of a meditator. But
but what I'm getting at essentially is that I don't think you need the white to show the more heroic kind of.
It's not I would argue against the heroism thing. 'Cause that seems like a crutch that we can't always fall back on. But I definitely think about community and his debt to the community and his motivations come from that sort of white-green side of things.
Yeah. Okay.
I just have a question on the side of things.
Sure.
What is it with Spider-Man's nemesis that always want to prove that they're better at being Spider-Man than he is?
I don't follow you.
Because Kraven's last hunt,
right?
Yeah.
He obviously he takes Spider-Man's place in the middle of that comic. To prove that he is better than Spider-Man.
I think it's a comic book trope because there are quite a few villains amongst the comic book pantheons. Things like Prometheus in the DC universe, or Bizarro with Superman, or even Superboy Prime in like the Infinite Crisis stuff in DC. There's all like random heroes, Sinestro to an extent, who get jealous or believe that what they're doing is correct. They're kind of warped heroes, if you will. And I think Spider-Man's got a few of those. Like the whole reason for the Green Goblin serum, other than it like fixing the ailments that the people are suffering from, is that they're doing it to improve themselves. There's a lot of betterment, but then the betterment ends up going to the extent that they go past being better into the realms of being mental. So I think you're not wrong at all, but I think it might be a bit of a superhero trope.
It's just because I recently read Kraven's Last Hunt. At I think yours and Rob's.
No, I've never read it. So it's Rob's recommendation.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Rob's recommendation.
It's one of the best.
He has done some preparation for this. I'm impressed, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, I read it, and I just put two and two together with obviously with Superior Spider-Man, in that Doc Ock basically becomes Spider-Man through a convoluted means. He still has the extra arms though, doesn't he? He still has the octopus arms.
No.
No, isn't there a version that has the?
There
arms?
are several other mutation versions of Spider-Man.
The famous the Iron Spider is probably the most famous one, other than Man Spider, where it's Spider-Man in a Tony Stark designed red and yellow suit with robot arms. Which you see in the Infinity War film a little bit, where he has the suit on the spaceship and stuff. And that was given to him as he revealed his identity to the world and became part of the Avenger Initiative to hunt down people who were not going to give in to the Civil War and with their identities and stuff. And that's where I'm going to the splashing red bit, where he's like wearing robot suits and shit like that. And obviously Homecoming talks about that quite a bit as well. Tony gives him like a suit with
a suit with unlockable upgrades,
which again just gives him a progression in the movie and gives him a character to bounce off of when he's locked in rooms with it. So again, it's a bit of lazy, well, not lazy, but a contrived
training
storytelling
wheels program, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's called.
But so I don't think it's just Doc Ock arms, as far as I can remember.
Actually, to continue from the Homecoming angle of things, to move away from your point about being red, the Homecoming kind of twist in that he has to face Vulture without the suit at all, and just rely on himself as being
himself
self-sufficient.
and his radioactive spider given superpowers.
So he has this. But what I mean is the whole point of him having to be Spider-Man without the suit. If I don't know what the exact phrase is, but he has to prove that he doesn't need the suit before he can have the suit.
Again, a big superhero trope. Like, you get depowered and you have to prove that you are heroic in spite of your powers. So you have, there's so many stories of Superman losing his powers but still standing up to people. Is it Superman 2 that he loses powers, the old Christopher Reeve movie?
Yes.
Yes, but he still needs to, show that he's of strong will and stuff like that. So it's depowered. It's not depowered in the same way, because he still has a lot of his abilities and his strength to lift the building and stuff like that. But again, it's another trope that just goes to prove that these characters are stronger of will and of metal and strength of mind than the evil, self-serving villains, I guess. Again, it's just like
it's the whole in Spider-Man 2 where he loses his powers until he gets his groove back and realizes that he comes to that, he confronts his inner demons and deals with his angsty bullshit, and then he can get his powers back and carry on.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow his powers are connected to his emotional work.
Iron Man 3, Thor Ragnarok. There's recent movies that have done this as well. It's a common trope, isn't it?
I think I was just referencing more specifically with the loss of the suit and not necessarily loss of power, if that makes sense.
But that is part of his power, isn't it?
What I mean is, he's still inherently who he is. He still has his base power set or base move set, but he doesn't have the extra bells and whistles to make him either the Iron Spider or whatever it is with the advanced Tony Stark suit. I think that was my counterpoint.
Fuck, I really like that movie.
To the insistence of it being a red-blue scientist with the mech suit kind of aspect, whereas I agree more of it just being like okay, so fine, the white is contrived and not necessarily required.
No, I don't think it's contrived. I'm just arguing for a different
Simic
angle.
obviously makes more sense than Ruck.
But I guess that's the whole point of with heroes and characters with long histories. Similar to how Nyssa, Chris touched upon it, where she went to blue green, then back to green. Like these, so like Batman, for example, I can argue several stages in his lifetime where he's at one point he's Mardu, another point he's Esper, another point he's just straight up red black. Other times he's probably almost just black. Like there are times when they've been different, and it happens with Spider-Man. So you've got when he's flying around in mech suits and doing mad science with Doc Ock, he's probably splashing more into red. But when it's all about getting down to the nitty gritty of it and helping New York and being part of the community and getting the keys to the city, he's probably a bit more white. So I guess that's the whole point of characters that progress, is that they change. The colour pie should never sit someone fixed in one slot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Although we will try to do that in future episodes, so it just makes life easier.
It does.
On that topic then, as I almost touched upon, what are your favourite Spider-Man movies to finish with? My favourite is either Spider-Man 2 or Homecoming. I can't decide which one I like more.
Spider-Man 2 for me. Although I haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse yet either.
Me neither.
So it might be that.
Let's go see that. We need to see it.
So I haven't seen Spider-Man 3.
Don't.
I don't know if I'm missing much.
Well, actually, it's worth sitting down and watching with a friend like myself, because it'll be funny. Because there's some really bizarre choices in that movie where Sam Raimi was just sticking it to the establishment. Okay, so you haven't seen Spider-Man 3?
I think Homecoming is my favourite, but again, I need to see into the Spider-Verse before I can make a more of a set opinion.
Okay, so people at home, let us know if you think we're full of shit and Spider-Man's actually like a Mardu fucking Woe Reaper or some shit, please let us know in the comment section below. I think this is one that a lot of us are probably going to agree on, because Spider-Man's quite cut and dry for the most part, in terms of where his powers come from, and in terms of where his motivations come from as well. If you've got an argument around with the films as well, and think we're mad that Spider-Man 3 is a fucking masterpiece, then don't bother telling me in the comment section below, because I don't care, because that film is shit. Oh, and Amazing Spider-Man can suck my dick as well. That film was fucking awful. Amazing Spider-Man 2 might be one of the worst superhero movies ever made. I'm throwing it out there. It's up there with Spawn, Batman and Robin, Batman Forever. It's fucking terrible. It's just garbage.
Which one?
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Fuck, it's so bad. Anyway, if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you all very soon for another episode of Magic the Colouring. Ta-ta for now.
Bye.
Bye.